What's up, everybody? Derek Anderson, the DA. All right, everybody. It is official. It is an official flop for Disney, for Rachel Zegler, for Snow White. All right. Shout out to Marvin Montanaro on That Park Place. Let's go through it. Snow White crashes 70% in weekend box office drop. Rachel Zegler and Disney on track to lose #1 spot to patriotic action movie, A Working Man. Yeah, A Working Man put in that work. All right. Put in that work. Smash Snow White right up on out the mix. Already in second place, can't even get one weekend. Rachel Zegler, you had one weekend to crow, and now it's time to eat. All right, it's time to eat that crow. Yeah, I did a video on this yesterday, just talking about it. It was at 68%. All right, based on their projections. It actually got downgraded a little bit. It got downgraded to 66%, which is still pretty bad. All right. No matter how you slice it, it didn't come in first place on A Working Man. A Working Man, a very standard run-of-the-mill action movie, nothing spectacular. Jason Statham does a good job in it. I liked it. I enjoyed the movie. But if you're not into the beat 'em up, blow 'em up, shoot 'em up style, you probably just like, what's the big deal about this movie? It's really not a #1 in the box office movie, you know, for a weekend. It's really not that type of movie. But when all you got to go up against is Poison Apple herself, oh, it's easy. Yeah. And it's like, look, a couple of movies got kind of close to knocking this thing out. Look at this, man. So you had Working Man #1 at 15 million. These are all projections, by the way, because remember, the first week, they said that Snow White did $43 million opening weekend. Then that got downgraded to 42 million. You know, so we'll see what happens with this. But they're saying Snow White came in second place with 14.2 million. The Chosen Last Supper, $11 million in its opening weekend. And then The Woman in Yard, and then Death of a Unicorn. All right. Box office wasn't really that good. It was barely higher, like by $1 million. The box office this weekend was barely up by about $1 million over the last weekend. But yeah, you can see Snow White had 4,200 theaters that it was occupying. All right. Its average 3,380. Everybody else is beating it with the exception of these last two. But look, I mean, this is just terrible, man. This is absolutely terrible. Snow White can't get the job done. Look all the way down here at the bottom. All right. You got Princess Mononoke, you know, a Studio Ghibli movie that came out years and years and years ago. All right. But look at its overall average, $12,000 per theater. It was only in 330 theaters. Imagine if it was in more. It probably would have, yeah, whatever, Snow White, we got you covered too. Bruh, this is a bad situation right now for Disney. It's time to end these live action remakes. Nobody cares. Nobody's watching. It ain't enough Zeglerians, all right? It ain't enough of the Zegler fans to go and fill these theaters up. I really want that to be like one of the biggest takeaways with Disney. They're casting people based on social media reactions, all right? They're casting people based on the fact it's like, oh, social media, look, I don't know what Jason Statham's social media presence looks like. They don't really need a social media presence. You got a good action star with, you know, and an action movie, it's going to make its bread. And apparently Rachel Zegler has a, I guess, pretty substantial following on her IG. You know, her IG is 2.5 million followers. She needed all 2.5 million of these people to go and buy multiple tickets, but that didn't happen. All right, that did not happen whatsoever. Look, she ain't even talking about Snow White no more. Normally they have something in here about Snow White. No more. She's just Lenny's mom. All right, that's it. That's all. Wow, man. It's like everybody has just jumped ship, bailed out on this entire movie. This thing is an absolute disaster. Look, let's read up on it and let's see where things are shaking out right now. After months of controversy, inflated budgets, and PR meltdowns, Disney's live-action Snow White looks like it will be knocked off the top of the box office with a devastating financial drop, not by $1 billion franchise, not by an Oscar bait drama, but by a Jason Statham action flick with a modest budget and a title that sounds like a Home Depot ad. A Working Man. More people were interested to go see A Working Man than to go see Snow White this weekend. That is bad, all right? And look, it's fine, all right? An unassuming thriller about a decorated military veteran rescuing a kidnapped girl. You know, again, standard. Like, we've seen this movie 1,000,000 times. Nothing special. Nevertheless, everybody's like, shit, I want to go watch something, and I ain't watching Snow White. Okay, Jason Statham, Working Man. Yeah, I like Beekeeper. You know, it's by the same makers, written by Sylvester Stallone as well, based on a Chuck Dixon book. All right, let's go and check it out. Let's see. It might be good. Meanwhile, Snow White plummeted nearly 70% after its already dismal debut, pulling in just 14.2 million in its second frame. Let's be clear. This isn't just a loss. It is a rejection. This is everybody in America and even all over the world saying, you know what? I'm tired of this crap. No more Disney remakes. We don't like them any longer. We're done. Disney, it's time to course correct, baby. It's time to figure out what you're going to do with all of your franchises moving forward. Star Wars is failing. Marvel is failing. Disney princesses are failing. The only thing y'all got is Pixar. All right. Pixar still put out Inside Out too, but you got to be very careful. You know, you got to be very careful because people are kind of getting tired of the sequels. That was the second sequel to, you know, the number 2 for Inside Out. That was the first sequel to Inside Out. All right. But you know, they're talking about doing Incredibles 3. Are we really checking for Incredibles 3? Frozen 3, Toy Story 5? Like, they got to slow it down. All right. But yeah, they got to course correct. Disney, this is a wake up call. This is a giant wake up call. Will they wake up? That's the bigger question. The fairest flop of all, Disney spent over $250 million producing Snow White, and that's before marketing. They jetted Rachel Zegler around the world for months, filled social media with carefully curated promo spots, and propped up their star through puff piece interviews and choreographed red carpet moments. None of that worked, all right? None of that worked at all. They worked overtime to repair the damage Zegler called by mocking the original film, trashing the idea of love stories, and framing her version of Snow White as a symbol of activism. And it still wasn't enough. See, they couldn't repair that damage. You know what could have repaired this damage? And I've said this before. If you actually had 7 dwarves, if you had actually cast the dwarves, all right, with actual actors, you could have sent them out on a press tour. You could have sent them to Good Morning America. You could have sent them to the Today Show. You could have sent them on spots where, hey, we're out here at this little children's hospital and we're hanging out with the kids and blah, 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 blah. Like, you could have did things like that. That would have counteracted all the negativity that Rachel Zegler has shoved out there. If you actually cast 7 actors and then you had them going on the press tours, Good Morning America, the Today Show, all of these various places, send them out there. And they would have been just like, oh, man, look at that. We got the 7 dwarves in the house, ladies and gentlemen. Let's bring them out. Sleepy, happy, dopey, grumpy, sleepy, all of these cats. Sneezy. All right? Bringing them out. And they all coming through and everybody's waving to them. Oh, my God, it's the 7 dwarves. You send them up to Disneyland. You have little spots over there at Disneyland. You record that. You shove that out there. That would have offset all of this negativity that Snow White herself had thrown on this movie. You know, the dwarves really, when you go back and watch that original movie, the dwarves are honestly the best part of the movie. The dwarves were the fun part. It's like, oh man, we get to the dwarves, they're mining for gold, they're singing, they're dancing, they're having a good time. Dopey's putting the little diamonds in his eyes and it's all that stuff. Like, that's the fun stuff. That counteracts all of this negativity. Because all of this stuff that Rachel Zegler was spewing for months and months and months, a couple of years really, it's all negative. It's all negative, but a little troop of actors, and I'm not saying all those actors would have just been like happy-go-lucky or whatever, but again, you get those guys out there, they're waving to the crowd, they're happy to be there because it's hard to get work. You guys are going to be our main promotion arm. We want you out there on the circuits. We want you out there going on various talk shows and everything and promoting goodwill for this movie. It would have absolutely worked. The only thing they had to counteract Rachel Zegler was Gal Gadot, and she just unfortunately is not enough. You know, and plus she's playing a villain. Like, it's just no way you could get around it. But yeah, man, Snow White is a giant disaster. Yeah, look at this, man. Only $143 million worldwide. This needed to be like the opening weekend for the domestic, all right? This is after 2 weekends. This 143, it probably needed to be $150 million just for it to get a chance to break even. That's how bad this movie is doing right now, y'all. And now everybody's talking about, man, is this thing going to enter into the Marvels territory? Is this going to crack $200 million? Yeah, don't forget, the Marvels only made $206 million worldwide. Look, we are already in its second weekend. I don't know how long Disney is going to leave this thing in theaters. I doubt it's going to be a very long time. Like, honestly, this thing feels like Disney might leave it in for 2 more weekends just to see what it do, but the box office is just going to keep dropping just to see if they could get it to 200 milli. Sitting at $143 million right now is not good, all right? 143, this thing might scrape 200. I was saying at least, all right, man, it probably do like 350 because I didn't really know what was going on the international circuit. I thought maybe international might boost it up. Nope, not at all, man. The international did not come through whatsoever. China has rejected it. Everybody is saying Snow White is trash all over the world. What a massive disaster for Disney. But they got nobody to blame for themselves. Anyway, y'all let me know what y'all think about this situation. It's bad. It's about as bad as it can get. Now Disney has to figure out what it wants to do going forward with any of these princess movies, any of these live action remakes. I think Lilo and Stitch is going to probably do just fine, but some of the rest of these, hey man, it might be, it's time to make some new shit. Put it that way, Disney. Time to make some new things. Anyway, y'all let me know what y'all think. Jump down in the comments. Give me your thoughts and opinions on that. Thanks for watching. See you next time.